Hello, and wow, that was a way to start a morning, and I'm still a little raw, and I'm still very inspired, and I'd just like to take a second to recognize that we're all human beings in the world and to greet each other. There's probably someone you're sitting next to that you don't know. And before I get started on a talk that dovetails and certainly inherits a lot of the same intensity that Mike's does, I actually want us to feel like a togetherness. So just take a couple minutes, turn to the person next to you, introduce yourself to them, have them introduce yourself to you, and then we'll get started. Can we do this? Okay, good. I give you a second. Hi. All right. Okay, the peoples. We have all arrived. We have destroyed things. We are rebuilding things, and we're going to create things. And I am here to capitalize on a lot of that energy and to kind of take it forward. And when I heard Mike was doing that talk, I wanted to do something that you could bring to the practical work that you were doing every day. And I'm learning as quickly as you are about this new world and these digital things, etc. And I draw from a bunch of experiences. I have a very checkered past in design. I started early with the web, and I've kind of moved around. But lately, I've been investing my time and energy in entrepreneurship and the startup world and how that connects to user experience practice. So everything I'm going to be saying is absolutely public. Here's a couple of hashtags you can use if you choose to do so. But I want to be thoughtful for a moment because there's a few trends that I've seen that start out as what I call noticings. They're just little things that you might be aware of, and then pretty soon you start recognizing a pattern. And I actually think we're at a pretty significant point in our field where we need to make some changes to really become the kind of field, the kind of impact that we want in the world. And one of them is I believe that our institutions today are based on an industrial mindset of sequenced work and a mechanical type of production model that is inappropriate for the kinds of things we're making today. And I think part of what we grapple with when we're dealing with organizations that have trouble changing and understanding the value of our work and the value of anyone's work, actually, is that these are inappropriate constructs for the kinds of things that we need to be doing to build a better world. I think they're based on systems and machines and the ways that robots work, and all of that has given us amazing production power, but it hasn't given us the heart and empathy that we need to build a better world. And so what do we do about that? Well, I don't know what that future looks like, but I do know that new companies that are starting are trying to understand and structure themselves differently. So that's a noticement I've been having. Has anyone else sensed this? Like, hey, modern corporations kind of fucked up for doing the right kind of work. Okay, there's like 5 people. So clearly I'm not winning you. That's okay. The second piece is a noticement of, we've done this, is this. And this is a work from Marty Neumeier's book, Meta Skills, where he talks about the kind of skills that are going to continue to have value in the future. And I know you can't read the detail. It doesn't really matter. I'm not going to go into it in depth. But what it is a construct that work that starts out at a very high, very kind of human and valuable scale starts a slide towards commoditization and robotic production that deconnects the human part of it, and it becomes a method of production where you're no longer involved, and the price drops out of it. And I believe user experience design is starting down this slide. I think we can look at things like 99 designs. I think we can look at other modes of production where mechanized kind of machinery has actually taken on what I would consider higher value work, and recognize that probably any high value work is going to go down this slide. And I think we're going to start that. And that concerns me, because I believe as a field we are dedicated to bringing new things to the world that enhance the human experience and actually solve meaningful problems. So that's the second noticement I have. And the third one is I've spent a shit ton of time in the last 3 years working with a lot of very smart entrepreneurs and startups. And very few of them are design founded. They are often developer founded or business person founded. But this is a collection of some of them, many of them from places way outside the United States. So I'm not just a Silicon Valley person. In fact, the company that I helped co-found was specifically designed to spread information around user experience and entrepreneurship for companies that were not based in Silicon Valley. Now, since we're located in Silicon Valley, I recognize there's a paradox there. But it was really important because the problems that Silicon Valley chooses to solve and finds valuable to solve are not the problems that the rest of the world might find valuable to solve. So that was our challenge. And I found that as we were starting to work with these very early stage companies, that we were doing a lot of work like this. And this looks like user experience collaborative work, because it was. And the problems that were crucial for these early stage startups and these founders to define and decide to move forward were actually user experience problems that we have spent a whole double decades developing extraordinarily sophisticated tools to solve. And so I believe designers are actually entrepreneurs in the way we think about the world, and we can just simply make a shift to reapply that to create companies ourselves and products ourselves that will allow us to better kind of advance the field and advance the state of products in the world. And I think when Mike was talking about, the CEO and the marketing director in a room saying, we'll never be able to convince the designer to go along with this, I think we can maybe make that bullshit room from keep it from ever happening. What if the person in that CEO seat was the designer? What if they understood those issues? What if they understood the way to create products and services that only fill important needs and can lead a team to do it? And I think that's us, and I think that's you. And I'm here for the rest of the time to give you some simple things that I think will help you shift your mindset so that you can fully step into that identity and bring a better future. So I'm going to talk about these 3 shifts. And the first one is focus on the why and not the how. Now, I talk to a lot of different people, and they say, what is user experience design? We want some. Can we please spray it on our product? And I say, it doesn't really work that way. And so I go to the web to look for good tools so that other people can understand what we do, and this is what I find. I find lists and categorizations of other fields and other specialties and words that don't mean anything to people outside our realm, collected and overlapped, sometimes colored, in increasingly imbricated and sophisticated ways of communicating something that nobody fucking cares about. The only people that care about this is us. And honestly, this is good work. I know some of the people who've created these. I have highest respect for them. But it doesn't help you do anything. And so I instead like to think about user experience as a double-sided coin. One side is dedicated to the craft, the things we make and the activities we do, the tools we use, all of what I call the fiddly bits of design. That's the makery, and that's part of who we are, and I honor that and respect that. But there's the other side of the coin, which is why we do this at all. And that I think of as a UX mindset, and that's the mindset that I see advancing in much faster ways and much more broadly impactful ways in the entrepreneurship and startup community instead of in the design community, and that concerns me. So starting very simple, I'm a gal of simple needs. I like simple words, I like simple ideas. I think they're mostly simple in hindsight, but getting to simplicity is hard. Here's how I define UX. It is a mindset that is focused on delivering value for real human problems that that inspires the right kind of thinking so that you're not wasting your time polishing things that would never be effective design solutions anyway. I don't care what color it is. If it's not going to work, if it's not going to solve a problem, why are we spending our time on it? And that actually helps us make decisions. Decisions about the kind of things we should build and how we're going to build them and how they affect people and what we can learn from how they actually are affecting people, not just when we deliver and ship it. Because shipping isn't the end, shipping is the beginning. And I found that rather than have a set of specialties put together in very, very colorful Venn diagrams, that instead a set of questions put together in a very simple framework has been much more effective. And I want to put this forward to you. I have yet to find a person who is a UX professional debunk this, which gives me more and more confidence with it. but also just because it becomes a very helpful tool. I don't think of this so much as a model, as a series of questions put together into almost a workbook or a worksheet. And these are the questions that startup entrepreneurs grapple with all the time. And I think they're questions that designers grapple with all the time. And if these kinds of questions are not keeping you up at night about your product, they should be, right? Because this is the kind of, these are the elements that actually make for an effective business. So who's going to use it, and why will they care, and what will they pay for, and what features, and how does it all fit together? These are the simple questions that we spend our careers trying to solve. But the great news is that because of design can make a few tweaks and actually transform the world, we can make a few tweaks to these questions and actually end up with something we can answer more effectively, especially if you're in a founder role or a startup role and you're positioned to have to make these choices for your company. And that is, instead of who will use this, which is an open question, it's so passive, who will use this? No, who is it for? Let's make a choice. Let's make a convincing choice of understanding who this is intended for in the first place. And instead of why will they care, oh, que será, who knows why the world would care? I don't have to care. This is where apathy comes in. But no, why does it matter to them? If you know the people, you should know them well enough to know what matters. That's our job. And then what can it do that people will pay for? This is one in the freemium world, right? Other than an advertising model, what are people going to pay for? Well, you know what? If someone can do something that matters to them that they could not do before, they can do it better, they can do it faster, they can feel better about it, they will pay for that. They might pay in a different kind of currency. They might pay with attention if you have a different business model. They might pay in cash. They might pay in some other kind of scarce resource like their time or their efforts or their contributions. But they will pay for it because you have made something possible for them that did not exist before. And then what features are most important? Well, you kind of can't get away from this, right? Because features are the way that these ideas, these abstracted notions kind of become real in the world. But what you can do is decide and define only the features that people need to do that thing that you know is important and that they'll pay for. And any other features outside of that are crap. And you should say, I'm not going to do it. And lastly, what builds that coherent experience? How does this all dovetail together so that someone understands it, so that it feels like it's been thoughtfully and appropriately fit together in a way that actually supports a human need instead of the code base that you're working from? So we have these basic questions. Wouldn't it be lovely if we could give them, well, I don't know, just some basic categories or names to, be a little bit more succinct about it? Well, ta-da, we can. And wouldn't it also be great if maybe they lined up in, I don't know, a model or a framework? We are really good at making that shit. And if you thought you were getting out of here without a model or framework, then you were wrong. So I'm going to talk you through this. It's so simple, and you guys deal with this every day. It will be immediately recognizable, and that's the point. Okay, so we have users. Users are people in the world, and they actually have needs and goals. And those needs and goals come out in something I think of as uses. And uses are the connection of what someone can do with your product that they can't do now. And you can illustrate those, and you can ideate those. You can generate those by creating scenarios or storyboards or some kind of picture of a human in the world having an experience. And from these uses, you get a set of features. They are distilled out of it. They are not collected in and supplemented by it. They're distilled out of it. They are part and parcel, only designed to forward those uses. And from those features, you get the product, the way it overall, the set of capabilities that allow it to really shine. Now, you'll notice there's these little arrows, right? But nobody ever starts at the beginning because this is a model, and so you enter it wherever you can. I know some entrepreneurs that are really interested in the people they want to serve. I have a woman who I work with who is a mother of 3 children, and she would really, really like to make the lives of moms easier, so she starts there. I know other people who experience a significant problem in the world or something they'd like to fix, and so they start with the needs and goals. I have a problem, now I need to find out about the people that have it. But most of us have an idea and start making features. And that is the most dangerous one of all. Because without that decision-making lens of the people, the needs and goals, and the uses, you don't know which features matter. You can grind a lot of time and a lot of energy and a lot of effort in making something that just doesn't matter. So if you start with features, you owe it to yourself, your team, your company, your customers, to walk your way back up that cycle, up that chain, and then redefine it on the way back down. And I guarantee those features will be different. So you're in here too, right? Like your company has a purpose, it has a business, it's trying to accomplish something, so it lives right around here. And it's where that company and that needs and goals of the user intersect is where you build your value proposition. That's the only place in this that it really matters. It's we care about some things, this person has these needs, where those overlap, we can build a business. And everything else down here with sketches, prototypes, UI, those are all the fiddly bits. And the more we focus on honing and refining and inventing and communicating that, the more at risk we are about not being able to step out and actually frame our field as one that matters to people, because that's the space that's going to get commoditized. Now, in between the uses, there's this line. And that line is this watermark, and everything above it is about people and understanding, and everything below it is about product. So when we only think about our field and the work that we do as what am I working on with a product and those interaction pieces, we squander all of the purpose that we have in the world. So this model has proven to be very helpful as a problem-solving tool, as a way to question people, as a way to understand and elicit good ideas for what should we focus on. And I wanted to share it to you because I think it's important that we keep this kind of model in mind. What is the purpose of our work, not just what's the practice or craft of our work. So for those of you that are less on the visual side and maybe want more of a story-based element, which is also common in our field, you can put these together into a simple story. I like to do Mad Lib types of things, fill things in. So I'll go through this quickly. For users, you have a persona name. Most people work on personas, a way to articulate a generalized person so that you can actually have human empathy towards them. So meet persona name. They're a user type. They're a customer. They're an identity. They have some kind of thing that makes them a good customer for you. And this person needs to, and you just capture a couple of the needs or goals. These should come out of user research. If you're not talking to 3 to 5 customers every couple of weeks, you're not doing your job. No matter how specialized you are, you have to be talking to the good people. You have to keep that vibrant and that understanding of the human experience rich and recent in your memory. And then with the uses, with this product name, our persona name can do these things, 2 or 3. Now these can be really broad if you're just at the beginning of a product definition, or they can be super specific if you've narrowed down and you're really working on a feature. So it can scale at all levels of granularity. So with this product name, your persona name can make these uses using these features. Which are those features that are required? And then what is that brand and tone and voice, that essence that you want to communicate along with this? And these are where your brand attributes go. So I'm going to give a single story, and I'm a little mortified on this one, and you'll know why. So let's go through an example. Erica is a socially engaged college student. And Erica needs to feel closely connected with friends and loved ones near and far, no matter where she is. With Facebook, Erica can share her latest thoughts and see what her many friends are up to. In a way, using status updates on her wall, messages, comments, likes, and group membership, in a way that's universal, clean, consistent, and fast. Now, the good news about this is that actually the bottom part, the attributes, are what Facebook declares as its design principles. Notice it doesn't say safe or caring or thoughtful or empathetic on there, because this is a travesty. This design story was violated by that design work that Mike so eloquently talked about. So when we build the stories and we keep the stories live and the focus of our design work, I think we start making things differently, and I think that's important for our field. I think it'll keep us from becoming commoditized into the nitty-gritty of how we work, and instead keep us focused on the reason of why. Now, if you want, you can associate all of the things you do with this model as well, right? Like there's different zones, and if you're into those Venn diagrams, totally understand, been there myself. But you can go ahead and figure out, like, well, what types of tools would be appropriate at each level of this stack? And the answer is they're about there, right? You have a couple on the top, a lot more on the bottom. So the first shift is to focus on that why and not the how. And you can do that by ensuring you have this story, writing it down, keeping it where you work, saying it every morning, saying it every night. This is a story that you should be able to have at the tip of your tongue. You should live it. It should be present and baked into every single thing you make. And this is what entrepreneurs are doing. The second shift is this idea of moving from execution to envisioning and implementing and measuring. And I've been absolutely stunned both at my own past work as well as current work right now, how little we use numbers and quantifiable metrics as a way to validate or understand the impact of our work. Now that's one language. You can use qualitative data as well, qualitative information as well, but we don't have a practice of foreseeing the kind of impact we would measure and then testing ourselves against that post-launch. It's like once it's shipped, it's gone, and we need to shift this. I like to think about this as the Oreo model, right? You have envisioning the right thing, and you have figuring out the outcome that you desire, and then the implementation is just the thing that holds those together. But instead, I think we really focus on all of the implementation pieces. So the mind shift here is really about how you spend your time. And not your big life scale time, but instead your day-to-day working time. How much effort, how much time, how much proportion do you put on the things that are not about actually making design go forward in implementation? So here's the trick on that. You need to just chunk your time differently. I know it's a simple message. I understand in enterprises and places where you don't have as much control over your time, that's very tricky. Another reason I think it's a terrific thing to be an entrepreneur, because then you are forced to prioritize your time on things that will make your business go. And this is a way that I've prioritized time at Luxor based on our multiple iterations to try and ensure that we cover the whole basis. This isn't going to work for everybody, but I found it incredibly helpful because 40% of implementation time forced me to get smaller and smaller with what I was trying to design. Because the more complicated it got, just the more scalable it got. So I would basically rough out each week like this. And I'd watch the numbers because they're a lagging indicator. You release something and then you actually have to watch the numbers. You have to try and calculate that and learn from them, maybe go back and talk to people. This is a ginormous pain in the ass, and it's the only way you'll know if your design is working. Because if you design something, if you make something that you put out in the world and you have no idea if it has the impact, you don't have a design or an experience, you have a theory. And you'll never get validation for that theory. This is a model not to use, and this is the model I see most commonly, especially in the bigger design organizations. 70% on implementation. You might have 10% understanding the problem, and about 20% exploring different ideas, generating ideas, right? And then 70% making it go. You kick it out the door. You never see it again. Somebody else's job. Someone is looking at the Google Analytics. You can't learn from this. And if you have no feedback loop and you can't learn, you can't advance your practice. You can't make the impact you want. So don't do that. So the second shift is easy in words, and I know it's difficult in practice. But hopefully a time chunking tool can at least get you that one step started as you build that habit. The third shift is to really embrace your own founder identity, and I think we all have it. I think that somewhere inside there is this desire to just put our arms around something that says we want to make something good in the world, and we want to be a part of that intrinsically. We want it to be part of the identity we bring to the world. And the long halo, or the kind of the long tail of how we live our lives. And you know, when you do that, you actually set yourself up for a world of pain, and it's awesome. Because you will be, as a founder, you will be doing activities out in the world where they're visible to everyone. You will thrive and you will succeed on your own merits. You will fail on your own merits. You will be judged. You will be hurt. You will get punched in the face. And you know, you'll pick yourself up and you'll be smarter every time. You'll be more empathetic every time. You'll be more humble every time. And you can always make different and better mistakes tomorrow. So the game keeps changing, but I think you can just call yourself a founder. Try it for a week. Just try it on. Who here actually is a founder? I would love to know who's actually founded a company. Okay, that's good. That's a good number. So on the speaker list, turns out that there's more people who founded something than there are people who wrote books. I was kind of surprised by that. I thought that was pretty awesome. So, so if you're not sure if this whole founder life is for you, because it is effort and it is hard, I think you can still start a side hustle and keep your day job. But once you understand and kind of getting habitualized with the kind of impact you can make as a startup founder or as a founder, I think it will change your behaviors in your regular corporate environment and allow you to have a lot more strength, conviction, confidence, etc. Plus, you've got something to fall back on in case this whole firing thing happens, right? In case that culture is not going to be appropriate for the kind of design you want to do within it. So I think you can just call yourself a founder for a week. Just give it a try. See what questions people ask you. Those are questions you should probably have answers to. See how you feel in the world, how you would get regarded. I'm a big believer that when you want a new identity, you start behaving like that new identity, and it slowly becomes you. And I don't think that's cheating at all. I think that's okay. I think the second week you want to start something, right? Like define something and figure it out and give it a start. And design founders are becoming more common. I want to go through a couple stories of people I've worked with or that might be pertinent specifically to our field. This is Alexa Andrzejewski, who I worked with at Adaptive Path. And she had this dream and this idea and this need and this behavior that she really, that she felt very committed to. And I understand food photo apps are kind of the Tinder of the last couple of years in that they just feel like they're nothing. They might not solve a real problem. But actually, Alexa had this problem. She wanted to know what food looked like, and she couldn't get it from Yelp. She couldn't get it from any of the review sites. Right? The set point was on the review of the restaurant. It wasn't on the plate of food. And so she incubated this idea, ended up going to a startup weekend, didn't win, but she met her co-founder. She started to put it together. She was still working full time. She incubated this up, got a little bit of angel, actually have a demonstratable prototype, and then they were on their way. Eventually acquired by OpenTable. I wish they'd gone for revenue. I'm not a big kind of VC fan. I'm more of a bootstrapper fan. But she did that work, and she had a whole different relationship to her design because of it. And this is Rashmi Singh, a slide share. And her first product was Mind Canvas. Did anybody use Mind Canvas when it was available? See the back. So Mind Canvas was a way to have remote user research type of techniques. You could do card sorting. You could do some other things with it. But it was really for, she's a UX designer. She was for UX designers by UX designers. And that was a problem she was trying to solve for herself. Along the way, they pivoted, became SlideShare. The rest is history, LinkedIn, big exit. Again, I'm glad that wealth is somewhere so that she can reinvest it and bring that kind of opportunity to others. But SlideShare is the 10th highest rated learning tool, learning site on the web. So people are learning, people are actually doing things here that solve a real basic human need. And the third one, still it's a much younger company, is Marcin Trader from UXPen. And UXPen started out as a physical kit of wireframing components. Again, part of that drive like down towards commoditization is now it's a kit of parts instead of an expertise that lives within a person. But the UXPen application has now matured and it's started to be something that you can use for rapid wireframing, prototyping, and collaboration across your UX teams. And what I love about Marcin is he, again, is solving a problem that they were trying to solve through a consultancy, but it turned out a product was much more scalable. So designers are becoming founders, and those stories might be lauded, and they might not be the ones that you really want to read, but imagine yourself here. Imagine that kind of product, that need you want to solve in the world, and how you would get that out, and there's a lot of stories that are starting to be collected about that. This is a pretty good book. It's by the Designers Fund, which is based in Silicon Valley. And they've, so Enrique has gone out and interviewed a whole bunch of people that were designer founders. And this is the first version of that. There will be forthcoming ones. I think Alexa's in the second one, but we've got a few people, including Rashmi, in this one. And it's a good read. What you'll find when you read this is they are just like you, right? And you are just like them. They've chosen to take their work, kind of go forward, live this life of risk, and actually have the reward and risk and reward and control that goes with it. And that's an awesome, awesome thing. So the third mind shift is just embrace that identity and recognize you can start as small as you want. You can start with a small product. You can build a blogging empire. You might have the ebook, the ebook best collection of anything. You have unique expertise and things to say and problems you see and people you want to serve, and all of that can become encapsulated in something that you can run, you can manage, and you can build a better culture than the ones that we have right now that don't honor design in the same way that's necessary. So please just make it better. And there's two things that I think have had a fundamental difference in my ability to get the courage to go out in the world and do something like a founder piece. And the first is Lean Startup. And I'm curious who here has actually read this book. Like not just read the hype, but actually read the book. Because I'm not really into the hype either. And you hear things like Pivot and MVP and all of this. And in Silicon Valley, it's so loud and there's always a flavor of the month. And I hate that. But I tell you, I read this book because the people that I was talking to that I thought had such a good UX mindset, they were so committed to the kind of customers that they wanted to serve and the kind of products they wanted to bring to life. I thought, what is going on with this? Where is this magic? And my co-founder Janice also found that, and she had made the jump into this lean startup world about a year and a half before I did. And she said, no, you really have to read it. And it very much is a different way of bringing something to life. It's not about business plans. It's not about big funding. It's not about big scale. It's about doing something small and experimenting and testing it and using your way to wiggle towards something that really matters to people. And that idea of experimentation, where our designs, no matter how great we think they are, they're all a hypothesis until they're used, until we can see them in the hands of people and actually validate or judge them then. Like, all of that is very different and new than the UX world that I grew up with, where the design was finished when it was pixel perfect and it was polished and we thought it was beautiful. And I realize now how much shitty design I put out there that I thought was beautiful. And so much design that I'll never know, because I never saw it in the hands of the people. That is actually the trap of a consultancy, so there you go. As part of what the Lean Startup taught me to do is to ask constantly, what is the smallest, fastest thing we can build and get it out in the worlds of people so that we can so that we can move forward with more information? And there are all kinds of very interesting ways of doing this. There's experiments, and there's concierge, and there's emulating the product itself, and there's using platforms and frameworks and all kinds of things that are incredibly technically sophisticated that you, with no technical skills whatsoever, if you don't have them, can assemble an approximation of a product and test its value, not its code. And that's an important shift. And lastly, the world of startups is really, startup communities and tech hubs are really cropping up all over the place. You know, I was a little concerned about doing a talk on entrepreneurship, and so I reached out to Bruno. I'm like, is this a time for this audience? Because I know that things are, you know, the future's here. It's not evenly distributed yet. And actually, Silicon Valley's got a lot of fucked up problems, and I'm not sure what's going on as far as the overall, like, is this a big problem or is this a big opportunity that your audience would experience? Especially knowing there's more than 40 countries represented here. I mean, that's amazing. And he wrote back and said, the last 2 years have made a bunch of changes. It's really started to be much more of an intentional investment on the part of governments, on the part of individuals. Economic downturns have forced people into entrepreneurship that might have felt that they had a safer choice within a larger company. And we're seeing that as well in the United States. So these startup hubs are starting to emerge. And I tell you what's so crucial about them. What's crucial about them is that they have this idea of initial conditions. And any group of people that gets together, as a company, it's you as the founder. As a small community, it's the small originating group, have values and a value system with how they feel about themselves and what they think is important in the world. And that community, as it grows, will continue that value system. Those initial conditions are crucially important. And you look at Silicon Valley, where it's geeky and it's based on the engineering professor at Stanford who encouraged his students to go out and start companies. And it's based on Shockley and the fact that he was a crap manager and the people left and they didn't have a compete legal system so they could actually go into the same business just down the block. And they encouraged, so Fairchild Semiconductor, and then they encouraged their own people to spin off. They became Fairchildren, and they would use each other's real estate until they got big enough to move some other place. That community, that kind of, we're all in this together, that heavy technical mindset is still part of the Silicon Valley ethos. And so, if you're getting together, and it still looks like this. Sorry guys, it just does. That is almost a joke, but it's not really a fucking joke. But this is a different community. This is the downtown community in Las Vegas. And again, no community of people is perfect, right? I don't want to paint a perfect picture of this. But the downtown community is an intentional community that's been curated. And the downtown community downtown project is it's an initiative partially funded by Zappos, partially funded by the city of Las Vegas to revitalize a very kind of a downtrodden area way south of the Strip. And it was partially funded by a Vegas tech fund, which invests in startups. And Luxor was invested in, and so I spent a significant amount of time there during the past year. And that community is curated. Those founders and those companies are selected by the kind of talent they represent, instead of by the fact that they're just in the community and that they're aggressive and that they've got a great product. And that doesn't mean that, of course, that none of these people don't have great products, et cetera. But it's selected so that it's not all digital. The products are a range of digital and physical and a mix. There are women founders in equal distribution. There are people of different ethnic heritages. There are people of different religions, different ages, different family compositions. It is the most representative community of startup founders I've ever had the pleasure to participate in. And those are the initial conditions. Now, the curation won't last, the fun won't last. But if you can set those initial conditions, you can make a lot of changes. So I encourage you, in your tech hubs, as you see these things cropping up, as you organize or see meetups, as you start to see startup weekends happening, or you organize your own, or you invent something that's more appropriate for your environment than any of those programs, that when you get them together, consider who you're inviting and consider how you participate. Because designers, I think our value system is going to be pretty powerful in those communities. And I think we have the power to do that. So all of this really comes back down to the values and how do we express our values as designers in our workplace now and in the future companies that will start. And when we look at the name of the job, so the work that, or the talk that Mike did as far as the responsibility that we have and reducing apathy and banishing fear and banishing ego, those are the kinds of value systems I actually think will bring a very different kind of company to fruition. One that really does worry about the customer, that really does examine and explore the kinds of things so that the Bobby situations don't happen, so that things aren't insipid, so that we're not building damaging work, that we're building fruitful work and making the world a better place. And so other than that, I have two things to say, which is please just go do it, go out. It's not scary, it's awesome. You'll love it, you'll hate it. It will be amazing. I know it will be life-changing, and I hope it will benefit the economic stability of your communities as well. And there's only one way to go after that, which is to go be awesome. And thank you for your time.